gang, here we are. Still in the clampdown. Hope you guys are doing well. Hang tough there. Looking at the news today. Today is April 5th for me. We're on spring break. Happy spring break. Hotspots now in New Jersey, New Orleans, and Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of Great Britain, now hospitalized, at least for tests for coronavirus. So stay home. Stay away from people who are not in your immediate household. If you got to go out, they're now saying, as we have been saying, wear a mask even if you need to make one for yourself. It will at least somewhat protect other people in case you are sick and asymptomatic. If you're not showing symptoms, but yet you're sick and you sneeze or cough, if you have a dense fabric covering over your face, it will at least protect other people. If everyone did that, we could clamp down a little bit more. So keep, as I'm sure you are, attention to the current events. We're going back into the safety of the distant past here as we now move through the fourth and final unit. I'm grading the Unit 3 exams. Check Blackboard. Most of you by now should probably see a grade with my comments on there. Email me if you see any errors. If somehow you got a 0 for an essay that you actually wrote, it just means that I forgot to put in a grade. I probably put in some comments, but didn't put in a grade. So always email me if you see any problems, have any questions. We're all kind of dealing with this together, okay? We're going back into, again, the safety of about a millennium ago, 1,000 years ago, from India in the Indian Ocean Basin here. Right, chapter 15 is what now we move through our fourth and final unit. India, right, in the Indian Ocean Basin. That's this Indian Ocean bathtub here. So we're not just talking about India, South Asia, the subcontinent. We're talking about East Africa, the Arabian Sea, Lower Persia, India itself, modern nations today of Myanmar or Thailand, right, Indonesia. So this whole region, which even 1,000 years ago had great attraction for trade. As India jumped into the Indian Ocean, became a way station, an entrepot, a middle ground for trade from all over this region. So actually the coastline of India 1,000 years ago was quite diverse with people, Arab, Muslims, Persians, Turks will start coming in from Central Asia, trade with East Asia, so highly diverse. In India, during this time, will not be a single political entity, but it will be kind of a cultural superpower. All right? So, from the 6th to the 16th centuries, that's 1,000 years, right? From about 500 to 1500, if we want to be historians and round off numbers. There's political disunity. Okay? But what gave India stability? Largely village life and the caste within the village. Right? So in a village with a few hundred people, look, folks know what caste you belong to. You have to follow the code of that caste. Right? You don't want to be disbarred, so to speak. You don't want to be outcast from your group, be it Brahmin, Kshatriya, Commoner, or Shudra. Right? Remember those four castes and many jati within the four varna. Right? So there's this tremendous peer pressure to act morally within each group. Right? Nonetheless, right, while there's stability socially, there's change culturally. Islam will arrive in the 700s, the 8th century. Arab, Muslim merchants will push into the Sind. They'll push into northwest India, bringing Islam with them. Not at the brunt of the sword, the edge of the sword, but for trade. Okay? Later on, frankly, it will be a bit more aggressive when we see an incursion of Turks who had somewhat recently converted to Islam, push more aggressively into India. Right? So two waves of Islam moving into at least northern India. What will this result with? What will be the consequence of this? Rise of a more devotional Hinduism, whereby Hindus, and again, there are over 1 billion people of Hindu belief on the planet today, 2020, so there are many different Hinduisms, so to speak. It's not one vast orthodox faith. So generally speaking, many Hindus will respond to the incursion of Islam by becoming more devotional in their own faith, by taking the Hindu deities, taking one or a few of them and becoming devoted to them. In a sense, as the gods, the deities within Hinduism become intercessors between the self, or the soul within the self, the Atman, and this great reality of the universe, supreme reality of the universe called Brahma. which is a very vague concept, frankly, right? But the gods had personalities, they had lived on earth, they could act as intercessors between the individual and this god force Brahma, right? To help one to make it through this world and to purify one's soul in the process. And again, it might take many, many lives. So we see the rise of more devotional Hinduism, whereby adherents, believers, became devoted to one or maybe a few of the major, usually, Hindu deities. We also see the decline of Buddhism. Buddhism will be more popular in East Asia than it was in South Asia, also Southeast Asia, so it moved beyond India. It also be pushed beyond India, frankly, by Turkish Muslim invaders, okay, who saw this idea of that there might be many gods or bodhisattvas, saints really, but they saw them as gods, as idolatrous, as wrong, right? If there's no God but a God, what is Buddha and Buddha's many incarnations, and at least in Mahayana Buddhism, these many bodhisattva saints, these temples, these statues, it was anathema, was wrong in the eyes of most, at least Turkish Muslim rulers, who frankly would see Buddhist monasteries as kind of easy prey. Right? There was wealth in these monasteries. They weren't armed with weapons, usually, so they were kind of easy prey to these Turkish Muslim invaders. They helped to drive Buddhism beyond the subcontinent. Population growth, so here's more change, actually social change. The rise of population with India. We see that extrapolated to today when there are, someone could fact check me quite easily, 1.2, 1.3 billion people in South Asia today. It's huge. Okay? In India, I should say today. Economic expansion. So India is a magnet for trade from beyond that Indian Ocean basin. So India has a great cultural influence, even though it's not a singular political entity during this 1,000-year period. Okay? Trade with Southeast Asia, and also integration from Africa to East Asia. It's in the middle geographically. By the way, this is one of the, I think probably more admirable or attractive deities within Hinduism. This is Hanuman, human body, basically a monkey's head. Okay, so animal and human characteristics. This one probably, I'm sure, harder to see, especially through YouTube. One of the more popular Hindu deities today, Ganesha, kind of a roly-poly, no offense there, but human body with an elephant head. A great mythology behind Ganesha here. You often see him now actually in Western culture as well. Right? So, lack of centralized rule, especially after the fall of the Gupta Empire in India in the late 500s, kind of invited in nomadic invaders. Right? Arabs will move in to Western India, called the Sind, looking for trade. And as Hindus encountered these Arab Muslims, they essentially saw them as another caste. Oh, we're not going to marry you, we're not going to sleep with you, we're not going to eat with you, but we will trade with you. You want our spices, give us money, and we'll trade. Slowly, however, merchants will move down the coast of India, and Islam will spread. So if I'm a spice dealer, and I'm Hindu, and I'm actually trading with a lot of Arab Muslim spice merchants, I might convert, right? Those merchants aren't just coming to India from 9 to 5 one day and going back home. They're going to be there for a very long time, and they might even bring some Muslim scholars with them. They're going to pray together. And frankly, if I kind of join them, I might do more business. I might also truly believe in what they're saying. I don't mean to denigrate their belief. Also, if I'm a lower caste Hindu, I might see this idea that there's only one life, there's a straight path to Allah, is attractive and convert. So we'll see a slow spread of Islam. Again, it's peacefully for the most part in northwest and west India. Muslim Turks will come in another wave. This will be more aggressive. There'll be incursions on and off again, right, intermittent, from Central Asia. Right? So Turkish peoples will come from Central Asia into what is now Afghanistan, move through Pakistan into northern India. That'll be more aggressive. But before we, from several hundred years later, really trash these Muslim Turks, all of us probably have friends who've newly converted to something. a video game, now that you're all kind of sequestered at home, like, hey, this video game's awesome, or heaven forbid, a book that someone really likes, or a movie or a band, right? They just want you to try that, right? In some ways, the Turks were filled with this kind of energy of the newly converted. And they saw Hinduism and Buddhism as idolatrous, as wrong, okay? And had no qualms about smashing those faiths where they found them. There were more Hindus, though, so the Turks will not be successful in not be successful at all in driving Hinduism from India, but they will be more successful against the less numerous Buddhist. So Turkish migrations in the 11th century, around the year 1000, okay, move into northwest India, the Punjab, will establish a sultanate or a kingdom in the north. Here we have Muslim rulers over a largely Hindu population. How do you do that? Well, you can try to smash everyone who's not Muslim, but of course that's not going to work. It's going to destroy the economy. It's going to be very ugly, right? Or you can rule with some level of toleration. And that's what most of these Muslim Turks eventually did, okay? From northern India, rule with a degree of toleration for the non-Muslims. The southern part of India will remain in the hands of regional Hindu rajas or kingdoms. You see some Hindu architecture here in the south. We'll see something kind of similar in what's now Cambodia. As Hinduism, like Buddhism, moved eastward, in this case across the Bay of Bengal, and Khmer, K-H-M-E-R, rulers in Cambodia, now Cambodia, will convert to Hinduism and build Angkor Wat, this great temple to Vishnu. So the southern kingdoms were decentralized, suffered less invasion in the north, less penetration by the Muslims. So India is divided. Eh? The north, largely under the rule of Turkish Muslims by the 12th century, but largely Hindu population. Buddhism, mostly vacated. Jainism and other faiths, not that widespread in India at this time, or even today. So India divided, but culturally significant. Find Buddhism and Jainism, as I said. Right? Development of Hinduism becomes more devotional. If I follow this deity, this God figure, and follow his or sometimes her life story, if I pray to this God figure, if I use the statue, again, the statue was not divine, the statue was not a god, but the statue could help to focus one's prayers. Okay? Something probably many of the Muslim Turks did not understand. Okay? The statuary is to help to focus prayer, to tell stories. That this God will help me to purify my soul so I can join my pure soul with Brahma, the soul of the universe. Okay? The cults of Vishnu and Shiva were especially popular. Brahma being the creator, Shiva being the kind of recycler, sometimes called the destroyer, and Vishnu being the preserver. So if Brahma is creating, kind of in this trinity, right? If there's too much creation, the world's going to be overpopulated. Okay? Life can't exist if there's too much stuff. So Shiva is kind of the destroyer, but I would say really more of a recycler. But if Shiva destroys everything, there'll be no life, right? So Vishnu preserves. Okay, so there's a balance in this interesting trinity of within Hinduism of the divine. Gradually, Islam becomes appealing, especially among the merchants, right? If I'm a merchant and I'm trading with Muslims, be the Arabs or Turks later on, I might do more business if I convert to their faith. That's the kind of crass interpretation historians might give, or maybe someone just had a heartfelt reason to convert. Okay? Often what happened is these Arab or Turkish Muslims might that's a wrong word, sorry, cut and rewind there, might marry a local woman, okay, who's Hindu, and that woman would convert to Islam and the children would be Muslim. Okay? The Sufi missionaries also did their job in proselytization, trying to convert Hindus to at least their interpretation of Islam, where Sufis might say, you believe in Brahma, we believe in Allah, we all believe in love, God is the source of love. Let's try to find the commonalities between Hinduism and Islam, which might be difficult, right? Although we will see the rise of a new faith. By the end of this period, by the 15th, 16th centuries, Sikhism, that will believe in reincarnation, right? Hinduism, but one God, Islam. Okay? That especially took root in the northwest of India. So Islam had some appeal. Sufi mystics had also great reputation for faith. Apparently, we believe the name came from the heavy woolen and kind of coarse garments they wore, right? So they wore this suf, or this uncomfortable stuff. When most people in India were wearing cotton by this time, right? Thank you for inventing cotton long ago in India. But the Sufis had a great reputation for sincerity, open-mindedness. They accepted all. Within it, we see this bhakti movement that stressed the God of love, right? Kabir, the great poet, visually impaired or blind poet, tries to blend Hinduism and Islam. From your textbook, and remember, this course uses Bentley Ziegler Psalter, Traditions and Encounters. Sultanate of Delhi here in the north, different Hindu kingdoms, the Kolas here, and others in the south. But the spread of culture, Hinduism into this direction, and also Buddhism in this direction, plus over the plateau of Tibet through China, which we've spoken about previously. Okay, so India, great cultural superpower, and Islam, of course, moving in from this direction. Okay? Arab Muslims, here's the Sind trading, this region, and Turkish invaders, I guess I will say, after they convert, right? In Central Asia, they practiced different forms of animistic religion, but as they move through what we sometimes erroneously call the Middle East, they convert to Islam and then push their interpretation of Islam into India. India has an agricultural surplus, so these monsoon, rainy seasons, they figured out how to irrigate the land. Hello, my dog's joining us now with a ball. That's great. Population will increase. So the Indian Ocean becomes one huge integrated free trade zone. It's spices, it's sugar, which was actually considered a spice. It's cotton, thank you very much, as we said. And at least the coastline is really cosmopolitan. Right? Might be traders there from Arabia, from Persia, from Southeast Asia, from East Africa, people with different beliefs. This very kind of diverse coastline. The Jati, right? Remember caste maintains order, but you have four Varna, four castes to begin with. Well, yeah, those are priests, nobles, commoners, and servants. Then we get outcasts kind of outside the system. What about the sailor of a dhow here, right? A sailboat, we call it dhow. Where does that fit? Well, kind of commoner subcaste, right? The social system kind of starts to look like the hard drive in my computer here with folders within folders within folders. Indian culture will be adapted by Southeast Asian societies. Yes, we're looking at the timer. So it's going to spread across the Bay of Bengal. And here we see in what's now Cambodia, Southeast Asia, kind of that similar southern India architecture. Right here, Temple of Vishnu. Been there, beautiful, beautiful temple in Cambodia today. You spend your entire day there. Called Angkor or Angkor Wat, Temple of Vishnu. There'll be other temples nearby called Angkor Thom, which were devoted to Buddhism. Remember, those religions are not in contradiction, okay? One can believe in both, frankly. Buddhists might believe that Vishnu is one of the previous incarnations of the Buddha. Islam will also arrive across the Bay of Bengal, will spread slowly, but often there was flexibility in the interpretation. So, for example, if pork was being eaten in Southeast Asia, people were not going to give up pork, even though that was forbidden in Arabian interpretations, early interpretations of Islam. Okay, veiling of women might not happen in places like Indonesia, at least in this era. Okay, in Indonesia, Islam becomes a major faith, and it still is today. Right, this is the third most populous country in the world today is Indonesia. And it's the most populous Muslim nation today. Arabia, relatively fewer people, right? It's largely desert land. Indonesia, huge population. So, here's an image I took of actually Buddhist monks, I would say Theravada Buddhist, okay, watching the sun go down with me at Angkor Wat, okay, so I was in India years ago. I'm going to post this while you're watching it, if I posted it. Make sure